credibility to the idea that I might actually become an actor. That certainly did. I mean, I enjoyed acting, and I did do plays in school, and I was well received, but I thought that was such an impossible idea that I never took it seriously until I went to UCLA, and I had a mentor, an instructor there who was encouraging. So I'm one of these people, I think, to a great degree, who's sort of just, you know, going with the flow. And it's amazing that I, with that lack of drive and that lack of, you know, purpose, it's amazing that I've gotten as far as I have, I think. On the other hand, I cannot stand boredom, and I cannot stand being an actor. So I have to fill up the times in between. And that's why I've taught, you know, I've taught at UCLA, and I've taught privately, and I've taught at a couple of other schools. And I've written for television, and directed some theater. I do all these things so that I don't have to sit home and twiddle my thumbs. Yeah?
Do you actually speak Russian?
I don't speak Russian.
Oh,
and
okay.
it was brought home to me very, very, very strongly because I just came back from Russia.
Oh, really? Which part?
I was in Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Okay, do you know how to say Moscow in Russian?
Moscow.
Yeah?
Actually, I sang part of a song to my Russian hosts, and evidently I did it fairly well because they were being very polite. I don't know. But yeah, I was brought over by Babylon 5 fans, not Star Trek fans, but Babylon 5 fans. Babylon 5 was on in prime time in Russia, and Star Trek was like 4 in the morning. So they developed an enthusiasm for Babylon 5 and brought me over. Had a good time. So I went down for a couple of reasons. One, my parents are both from that part of the world. My father was, had very strong, passionate feelings about Russia. Well, of course, it was the Soviet Union then. And I wanted to sort of walk in his footsteps and see if I could absorb and get some sense of what it was that was so, so emotional and so important.
Was he a communist?
Oh yeah, he was a dyed-in-the-wool communist, and the interesting thing is that he was, I wrote an autobiography, and I included these experiences in it. We were investigated by the FBI because he was from the Communist Party. He wasn't trying to overthrow the government, but he certainly felt that communism was a better alternative. And of course, he had this very, idealistic vision of what it would be. Everybody working together, everybody according to their needs, and et cetera, et cetera. And he totally denied the whisperings and the beginnings of all of that talk about what was going on under Stalin. I guess he couldn't face it. He died in '56, and it had already become, part of the world news, but he was still finding a way to ignore it. And that was interesting. That's interesting to me because, so he was very left-wing politically in this country, and they had passionate feelings about Lenin and Stalin and communism. And when I was in Russia, I met a young fellow, about 20 years old, who we started talking, told me that Stalin was misunderstood and that he had done many great things for the country. And I was thinking, gee, in his country now, he's got to be considered very right-wing for his, for his support of Stalin. And in our country, in that time, my father was considered very left-wing. So it's an interesting concept when you think about it. Yes?
Meet any of your relatives while you were there?
Nobody's left. I had a cousin, a second cousin or a third cousin, who lived here for many years and then went back. She went back, and when my brother went to visit in the not try to contact her. Of course, that was a different time. And he said not to try to contact her, and that it might be difficult for her if he did. But I'm sure she's passed away.
I've heard that you brought up something with Star Trek because I want to have a Davy Jones type character.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to meet Davy Jones?
I did. I finally met him.
And what was it like? And also, did you feel that same sort of admiration of fans in the 60s?
Did I have the same adulation that he did?
Yes.
Well,
Did it work?
it worked. It worked. I was, for a while, I was receiving the third most amount of mail on the show after Leonard or Bill and Leonard. No, Leonard and Bill, I think, actually. And so we got that 8 to 14-year-old group, you know, on line paper and pencil. They thought Chekhov was groovy. And so, yeah, it was successful. And did I meet him? Yes, I finally met him, I think it was about a year ago. Yeah, at a signing in Burbank. I just went to see if I wasn't signing, I just went to see if I knew anybody. And he was at a table with a couple of other folks from the Monkees. And we talked for a few minutes, and he's very pleasant, very charming guy, and he knew who I was. So it was nice. It was nice. Finally, after all those years. Yeah.
Did you ever meet the young you in the new Star Trek?
Yes, I did.
Is
He's a
he
terrific
a
young
good
man.
guy?
He's a terrific young man. He's the young Chekhov. He's not the young me. He's his own person, really. Very, very bright. I guess you know by now the stories that he's extremely bright, extremely intelligent. A very, very sweet guy. I was on the set when they were shooting. I was invited to the set by Abrams. And we sat and talked for a couple of hours. And then I met him at the party after the premiere. And here's thousands of people, you know, milling about. And I walk up to him and his parents. And he says, "Walter, I've got my own action figure." He's got a big career ahead of him, and it's not going to be limited to his involvement with Star Trek, obviously. He's already done several films in the title character in a couple of them. Yeah, so I'm sure he'll bring a lot to the role, but he'll also bring a lot to the rest of the things that he does.
There was the previous panel that they were talking about. In the previous panel was about the lens they were talking about. That kind of Star Trek film, the Abrams Star Trek film, saying that what do you think of the difference between the two parts? Which one carries this character? Do they both do?
Well, I think you have to speak in terms of time and place, you know. The Star Trek of Gods and Men was, you know, a lot like the classic television shows. It was really a reflection of you know, a different perspective. The new Star Trek is of this time. You know, it's the way it's paced, the way it's edited, the extraordinary visual effects. It's a different kind of Star Trek, and it's appropriate. It's right for now. You know, I can watch classic movies and thoroughly enjoy them. I'm talking about movies from the 30s and 40s, but I wouldn't want to see those movies made the same way today. I mean, it's a different frame of reference, a different context, and they have to be appropriate for their time. I mean, you can do the same subjects. There's nothing wrong with doing about the 30s and 40s. You know, you bring to it what the audiences understand.